Welcome to the Wellness Radio podcast with Drs. Warren, where we have taken our live radio show episodes and transformed them into easy listening podcast episodes. Make sure to check out our website, drswarren.com, where you can find out more information about us, including how to work with us both in our clinic locally in Chattanooga, Tennessee, or virtually worldwide. You can also shop our favorite supplements that actually work, and most importantly, join our newsletter where we give you tons of free information on how to take your health to the next level.
All right, guys, welcome to the Wellness Radio. I am your health expert, Dr. Nathan Warren. And so if this is your first time tuning into the Wellness Radio, I am super excited you're here. This is a place where we love to dive deep into health and wellness, not just surface topics, not just buzzwords, but really looking at it from the standpoint of what is the latest scientific research show? What is our experience from a clinical standpoint? What are we seeing with our patients? Also, what does ancestral wisdom tell us? What does logic tell us, right? We kind of like to blend all of those things together in order for us to really have a good discussion on specific health topics here on Wellness Radio. So if you've been tuning into us for a long time, maybe for years, we're excited that you're here as well, too. You guys are what make this possible. It's what kind of drives us. We have a lot of fun meeting you guys out in the community that have been listening for a while. So again, thank you for listening. So today I've got a great show lined up for you. I'm going to be kind of piggybacking off of my last event that we did, which was a fantastic success, which was our 5th annual blood sugar summit that went really, really great this past Monday night. So today's topic, I'm going to be talking about some ways to stabilize blood sugar when we're looking at insulin resistance. Again, this is a great topic. Now, if you want to hear the entirety of the presentation that I gave on Monday, make sure that you go to our podcast. So you can go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts are found, and search Drs. Warren, the Wellness Radio. And you'll be able to find that. Make sure you subscribe so that way, when we release this in the next few days, you're going to get your alert and you'll be able to listen to the whole presentation that I went over this past Monday night. So if you missed it, if you're battling blood sugar issues, maybe you just want to optimize your health and increase your longevity, this is really a topic for everybody. So in this talk, I went over everything from insulin resistance to nutrition and how diet applies and what type of diet, how to fast, when not to fast. I even talked a little bit about things like metformin and Ozempic and some of those, drugs out there when it comes to diabetes. So we dove into it all. So again, if you're going to want an alert when that's released, find our podcast, Drs. Warren, the Wellness Radio, and you'll be able to get an alert. So subscribe there and you'll be able to get an alert when it goes live. Also, too, don't forget, you can check out our website, drswarren.com, DRSWARREN.com, drswarren.com. You can check out everything about myself, about Dr. Rebecca, about our clinic, about our upcoming events. You'll be able to check all of those things out there. So let's dive into the show, guys. I've got a short amount of time and we've got a lot of information to get through. So I'm really excited about this topic, mainly because when you look at insulin resistance, this is one of the reasons we do this each and every year. We know that it's, diabetes is the 7th leading cause of death. We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars spent. 1 in every 4 healthcare dollars is spent on diabetes and the complications and the lost time and lost work. Not to mention when you look at average years lost, right? You're looking at around an individual 18 to 44 that develops diabetes. You're looking on average of about 6 to 7 years worth of loss of life. And maybe to you, you're like, 6, 7 years, no big deal. Guys, those are 6 or 7, 365 days in a year that you get to spend with your husband or your wife or your children or your grandchildren. Those years matter. And then when we talk about loss of quality life, quality is estimated according to the CDC around 7.7 years lost of quality life, right? So you're losing the quality. Guys, that's a big deal. And then the other component that I really hit hard in this past blood sugar summit was the effects of fluctuation of blood sugar in the brain, the function of the brain, neuroinflammation, increasing your risk of neurocognitive decline, increasing your risk of things like dementia and Alzheimer's. Guys, stabilizing your blood sugar is not only one of the best longevity hacks that you can do, it's a necessity. It's the way we were designed, okay? We were designed to not have major surges of blood sugar on a regular basis, and yet we're seeing it in the millions in the United States. And one of the stats I went over on Monday that I thought was pretty alarming is when you look at diabetes and you look at the amount of people that have it in America, you're looking at around 32 million people that have, diabetes. 1 in 5 of those don't even know they have it. They have no clue. They're undiagnosed, right? Diabetes, that's even more dangerous. You look at prediabetes. Prediabetes is rampant, estimated 89 to 90 million Americans walking around with prediabetes. When we look there, it's alarming how many people don't even know they have that. And I've met with many. I've met with hundreds of them over the years that had no clue when we looked at their A1C. And we looked deeper than what most doctors are going to look at. We looked at C-peptide and found out about insulin resistance. When we looked at fasted insulin and found out how hard the pancreas is working, how much insulin is being secreted, all of those different things. And it's alarming because left undealt with ends up 10, 20 years later creating any kind of, whether it's increase in cardiovascular event, heart attack, stroke, increase in neurocognitive decline, increase in cancer rates. It's not a small issue. This is a big issue. And for some of you guys, it's time that we take this very, very serious. It's no longer one of those, and you may be sitting here thinking this, oh, I eat pretty good, right? I eat pretty good. I hear that all the time. I eat pretty good, but yet your A1C is still 6.5 or 7.8. No, there are things that need to be fixed, and they need to be fixed 10 years ago. Next best time is now. Your life depends on it. Your quality of life depends on it. The quantity of life depends on it. The amount of days you get to spend with your family, your friends, your spouse. And maybe you are one of those individuals that truly does not care about when it's your time to go, right? Maybe you're one of those individuals that says, nope, 100%, God has my days counted. That's it. When I'm done, I'm done. Doesn't matter. I can't do anything about it. Okay. Let's say that's you. The worst part about this is that, again, when we look at diabetes being the number one comorbidity for basically increasing your chances of Alzheimer's and dementia, you have to understand there are things worse than death. And I promise you, and all the people that were on my talk on Monday agreed, and I had about 1/3 of the room raise their hands of how many people have had loved ones or close loved ones that they've either had to take care of or watch closely them go through a neurocognitive issue and watch them go down that pathway of decline. And I'll tell you right now, it weighs on your family and friends financially, emotionally, physically, from a standpoint of time. It is one of the most taxing things that I've ever watched some of my patients go through. And you do not want that for your family. So regardless of whether you care about yourself, let's get away from that. And you got to start caring about the ones that you love, because when you're in that state, to be honest with you, it's not even going to matter, right? Like, you're not going to remember anything, or even worse, occasionally you will, and you'll know in those moments that something is wrong. And I can't imagine how that feels. That's an unfathomable feeling. But think about the ones that are left to take care of it all. And that's what we have to think about. So we have to have a big reason why we want to change our health and why we want to radically change our health. And I like that term, radically change your health. I think it's so funny. There's books and shows and things like that, even podcasts and things that are labeled in the alternative health world, radical healing or radical health, or you hear that term. And I think that's so just, it's kind of mind blowing, right? Because to me, changing your diet, working on your brain to body connection, your nervous system, and taking care of your spine, exercising, getting sunlight, utilizing supplement protocols when the modern world has left certain nutrients, vitamins, minerals out of our food, or that you have a deficiency in. Is that radical? Because what I think is radical is having to take a shot of insulin multiple times a day to keep you alive. That sounds pretty freaking radical. Taking statin medications that end up damaging what all of your sex hormones, all of your cell membranes, oh, and by the way, 70% of your brain is made up of, and depleting your CoQ10 by up to 40%, which strengthens your mitochondria. Oh yeah, your mitochondria control literally are one of the richest areas of the heart. That's what I find radical. Doing open heart surgery, that sounds radical to me. But changing your lifestyle doesn't, right? It may require work. It may require discipline. But again, what good things in life don't require those things? Like your job success, your marriage success, your kids' success. Like what in life doesn't require some work and some discipline? And yet, by putting in the work and discipline, you're throwing years onto your life and life onto your years. And so that's what we help with in our office, right? I help walk people through this process. And I do it every day. I've been doing it for a decade, helping people, whether you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, that have dealt with diabetes or prediabetes or abnormal blood markers or disease and dysfunction that you can't figure out. That's what we help with in our office. And I don't have to treat you. I don't have to give you medications. We just have to get to the root cause and figure out why you got to this state. And then what we're able to do is get the body healthy and watch it do what it's designed to do, and that's heal. We are going to over how to start working on insulin resistance. What are some of the top ways to stabilize your blood sugar? Again, we know that diabetes, prediabetes is rampant. It's only growing. Estimates show that it's going to double, right, within the next decade. And if we're already spending $1 in every $4 in healthcare on the complications of diabetes, guys, we are in trouble. That is a fantastic way to bankrupt our country, especially when we're talking about in the hundreds of billions of dollars that we're spending on the complications of diabetes. We also know diabetes and prediabetes are some of the biggest comorbidities for cancer and heart disease and neurodegenerative decline. So looking at things like Alzheimer's and dementia. So it goes much deeper than just stabilized blood sugar, guys. You are damaging tissue whenever you have destabilization of your blood sugar, right? Whenever you're having issues with that and fluctuations. And I thought that's what was so interesting. I went over a couple studies at the talk on Monday night looking at the effects of just even blood sugar fluctuation. So not long-term prediabetes, not type 2 diabetes, but when you're getting fluctuation within the blood sugar at an abnormal level, we know that creates tissue damage. Not tomorrow, but immediately. It creates micro tissue damage. It affects the oxygenation. It oxidizes tissue. It creates these free radical scavengers. It creates things like reactive oxygen species and glycation. We're seeing these advanced glycation end products that literally age your vessels, age your cells, increase your risk of atherosclerosis. So this is a big deal. When we look at what insulin resistance is, I think we've kind of got to establish what it is. So you're going to have insulin resistance if your body is unable to respond and use insulin that your body produce. Insulin is produced in the pancreas. Your muscles, your fat, your liver, it can't respond appropriately to insulin and are unable to easily absorb the glucose from your blood, right? That's insulin resistance. So as a result, your pancreas ends up producing an increased amount of insulin to assist in the glucose to enter the cell. So basically, by trying to make enough insulin to overcome your body's weak response to insulin, your body is aiming to keep your blood glucose levels at a healthy range. This is what ends up damaging these receptors. But the beta cells of the pancreas, they may not be able to keep up with this excessively high insulin demand. So as a result, you get excess glucose that builds up in the bloodstream. And then this can lead to things like more serious health issues, like we already mentioned. So insulin resistance can exist without symptoms for years. Let me be very clear. Symptoms don't show up overnight. And I think this is what we harp on all the time, but it takes years to register because it's so opposite of our mainstream medical mindset that your goal is to feel and look better. That's your definition of health. However, we know health really has nothing to do with how you look and how you feel at all. Life comes with pain and disease. That's just part of life. And I'm not talking about chronic disease. I'm talking about acute disease. Like your kids go off to preschool for the first time. There's a reason that you're getting every virus known to mankind when your toddler comes back from preschool and is around all those things. Like acute disease happens. That's life. Pain happens. You're a weekend warrior. You're working out. You're in the garden. You bend over the wrong way. Boom. You hurt your back, or you hurt your knee, or you sprain your ankle playing hockey, whatever it may be. Pain comes. Pain, acute disease, they come. That's part of life. So how you feel and how you look has zero to do with your health. What determines your health is how quickly do you adapt to those struggles that the body goes through. How quickly does your body adapt to the environment? We saw that during COVID. How quickly does somebody's internal environment adapt to the outside world? You fail to adapt, you have more complications, increased risk of death. The faster you adapt, the less complications you have. Health is about adaptation. Health is about function. How well is your body functioning? And when we look at diabetes, it's another example, just like cancer, just like heart disease. You will feel nothing for years until now those symptoms show up, which means it took years to get you to where you're at right now. Which means what? It requires work to be able to reverse these things. It requires work to be able to see those blood markers change. But what's great is that the body is designed to start reversing the damage faster than the damage happens if you dial it in. And that's what's so cool about the health of the body, right? It could take you 20 years to develop an A1C that's 7.5, and now you've got some neuropathy and you've got some of these things going on. You've got your weight loss resistant, it's affecting your energy levels and your fatigue is super high. But then you do 3 months worth of work and your A1C is now down to 5.4. You're able to lose weight. You're feeling fantastic. Some of you're building muscle better than you did in your 20s. Why? Because the body's designed to heal faster than it breaks down. The problem is if you don't get to the root cause and all you're doing is band-aiding the issue, you're kicking that can down the road, that's when we run into trouble. But if we figure out the cause, we start to make those appropriate changes, the body is absolutely amazing. So how do we know? What signs of insulin resistance? And again, insulin resistance takes time to build up. Signs of insulin resistance: trouble losing weight, having an appetite and a craving for sweets after meal, eating sweets that doesn't change or relieve those cravings, feeling more tired after meals, frequent thirst, frequent urination, hormone issues, PCOS. That's a big one, especially like when we look at women. PCOS is a metabolic disease, also with a side of toxin issues. Estrogen dominance. This is a big deal too. Low testosterone in men, acne, skin tags, skin pigmentation changes, high blood pressure, high triglycerides, right? Why high blood pressure and high triglycerides? Failure to adapt. So those are some signs. So you got to ask yourself, am I dealing with any of those? If you are, that could be a sign of insulin resistance. And so when we look at it like an overview, again, how the body controls blood sugar levels, we have to remember this. When carbs and food is converted into glucose, as glucose sugar levels rise, the pancreas makes insulin. Blood carries glucose and insulin to every cell in the body. Insulin acts like a key to open the cells. Cells absorb the glucose from the blood. That's the way it's meant to work. That's what we're looking at. And if we don't have that working properly, we end up with a major, major issue that ages your tissues and damages multiple, I shouldn't even say multiple, all areas of the body. So when insulin is high, that means an increase in inflammation. That means, and this is what the science shows, when we're having a constant insulin problem and we have insulin resistance and we have high blood sugar, we know that that increases inflammation without a shadow of a doubt. We know it increases estrogen in men. It increases testosterone in women. We know that it increases oxidative stress, which damages your vessels, damages your cells. It has a major effect on neurotransmitters, right? How you feel, how you sleep, how you are able to handle the stress that life throws at you, how you're able to focus. It increases your cholesterol and your lipid levels and your triglycerides, and it increases your blood pressure. Oh, and by the way, it lowers your liver detoxification pathways. So that means you're even more susceptible to damages from toxins, which we're exposed to about 90,000 plus toxins a year. So we know that that is a major deal. Now, what are some of the things that can cause insulin resistance? I think this is a big deal. Being overweight or obese, high sugar and high carbohydrate diet, sedentary lifestyle, chronic stress, smoking, high blood pressure, sleep issues. These are all things, using high doses of steroids for an extended amount of time. These are all things that can lead to insulin resistance. So when we look at elevated blood sugar for too long, and we look at inflammation, and we look at cardiovascular disease, one of the things that we have to understand is that when our blood sugar is too high for too long, this affects a couple different markers in the body, a couple different pathways, TNF alpha and interleukin 6. Now, you don't have to remember those, but one of the main things that this does is this increases our C-reactive protein, CRP. C-reactive protein is a blood marker that specifically looks at inflammatory response to the heart. And also, this is a pretty good overall systemic inflammatory marker as well. And so elevated CRP ends up leading to things like higher triglycerides, lower HDL. We see more damage to the vessels, more atherosclerosis. And also, we see an increase in abdominal obesity, which then continues to increase chronic inflammation. All right? All of these things increase your risk of heart disease, stroke, and heart attack. That is why it is such a big deal to start working on these blood sugar issues now. What's some of the impacts of sugar on the body? So when you're consuming a diet that is high in processed carbohydrates and high in sugar, here's what we see. Leads to increased weight gain, affects the brain health, which we've already mentioned, gives you sleepless nights, affects the way that you wake up and how many times you wake up because of the fluctuations in your blood glucose and your cortisol. It contributes to poor oral health. That's a big deal, guys. We know that infections in the mouth can raise your risk of heart issues faster than just about anything else can. We know it creates issues with anxiety and depression and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, harms the heart, aggravates pain. It drives pain cycles. If you are in constant pain, if you're a woman who deals with fibromyalgia, guys, these are signs of inflammatory state going on in the body. More than likely, we're going to find insulin resistance as well. Increases risk of cancer. Oh yeah, by the way, it weakens the immune system. Going into the winter, right? We know that's a big deal. Flu, COVID, you name it, strep, all these things increases, your risk for those because it decreases your overall immune function when you eat a high carbohydrate, high processed sugar diet. some of the things that we have to do when we're dealing with type 2 diabetes or prediabetes is we have to understand some of the things that some of the markers that we want to see get to, right? So we want the A1C, ideally for a healthy person, we want it about 5.4 or lower. Okay. I know that when you're looking at your blood work, your doctor's like, oh, you're 5.6, that's good. That's normal. Well, it may be quote unquote medical norm, but you're right there on the border. I'd almost go ahead and consider you pre-diabetic. You're right there on the border. Now, if you worked your way to get down there, kudos, that's great. That's better than where you were. But when I'm looking at a healthy metabolic, like a good metabolic function in the body, I want to see 5.4 or lower. That's what we're looking for overall. We want to see, fasting blood glucose be between like 70 and 99, right? Preferably not as far up as 99, maybe 70 to 90 when we're looking at fasting blood glucose. 2 hours after a meal, a normal person without diabetes is going to be less than 140. How many of you guys are that? If you've been tracking, you know that it's way more than that. So you're not responding appropriately to those things. And that's what can really lead to some major issues there. 9 out of 10 people with prediabetes do not know they have it. 90%. 90% of those do not know that they have prediabetes. So now let's start diving into some ways to stabilize. How can we stabilize our blood sugar? Well, first way is stop being a carboholic. Stop consuming so many carbohydrates. Now, I know it's easier said than done, and we have systematic ways to help you accomplish that in our office. But when we eat a diet that's higher in good quality protein, I'm a big fan of high quality animal protein, lots of good healthy fat, and limiting the amount of carbohydrates that are coming in the body. And if you're consuming carbohydrates, making those healthy carbohydrates coming from vegetables, coming from organic, fruit like berries, nuts and seeds, and those type of things. That is a major way to help stabilize the blood sugar. What's another one to stabilize blood sugar? Condensing your feeding window. What does that mean? Getting some intermittent fasting in, but also with the recognition, like I just talked about in my talk and spent so much time doing, is making sure when you break that fast, AKA breakfast, doesn't have to be at 7 in the morning. It could be 11, in the afternoon. But when you break that fast, we need to hit at least 30 grams of good quality protein, again, preferably from good quality animal protein, to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. The more muscle you build, the more fat that you burn, right? The decrease in storages of glycogen, which is stored glucose. So this can be a major, major effect on your health if you start, again, increasing your fasting, decreasing your eating window, and still making sure that you get enough protein. You get less than 30 grams of protein. If you get less than 3 grams of an essential amino acid called leucine, you will not hit muscle protein synthesis. And we want to hit that at the beginning of the day. Now, reducing stress and practicing deep breathing. This is another one that can stabilize blood glucose. Why? Because you're providing oxygen to the brain, oxygen to your tissues. It triggers a parasympathetic response in the body. That is a rest and digest state. When you're in a rest and digest state, your body says, okay, now I can focus on my immune system. Now I can focus on my inflammatory states. Now I can focus on healing. When you're in a sympathetic state and you're driving that fight or flight state, you are not focusing on inflammation. You are not focusing on reducing blood pressure and blood sugar. You are not working on those things. Your body does not care about the immune function when you're running away from a tiger. So reducing stress, also practicing deep breathing, can be a very great way to stabilize blood glucose. Some other ones that I think are really, really important is looking at exercise and specific types of exercise. So where I really like the research that I think is going to be the most beneficial for seeing this reversal of insulin resistance is utilizing things like high intensity interval and resistant training and looking at it from that perspective. So really kind of getting the heart rate up, bringing it back down, getting the heart rate up, bringing it back down, and then being done after a pretty short amount of time. So that way you don't get a high cortisol spike with that exercise. And so when we look at high intensity interval training or even resistance training, so lifting weights, We know the science shows that it improves muscle tissue autophagy and hypertrophy. So you're breaking down damaged tissue and you're building up muscle, right? It stimulates muscle protein synthesis. That's a big deal. When we look at adults, we need, again, good quality protein, specifically 3 grams of leucine, the essential amino acid. So you're looking at about 30 grams of good quality protein to help you hit that. And then we also need exercise to stimulate muscle building and muscle growth. Okay. This type of exercise has been shown to stimulate what's called mitophagy, breaking down damaged mitochondria and then creating mitochondrial biogenesis. What does that mean? Increasing the amount of mitochondria that are in the muscle. That is also a big deal. Mitochondria drives cellular energy, which drives you into a healthier state. Raises up endorphins to improve your mood and looking at neurotransmitters. Stimulates human growth hormone, anti-aging hormone, which stimulates what? Muscle protein synthesis. Improves respiration and perspiration to release toxins from the body. Enhances metabolic flexibility and energy efficiency. Guys, getting these type of workouts in can be massively beneficial. 3 to 5 times a week, 8 to 15 minutes and you're done. Push the body. Hit that point of that burn, that lactic acid burn. Push through that burn and then be done with it. You do not have to spend 2 hours in the gym. If you want to increase that, maybe you've always lifted heavy or you've been a premier athlete or you're looking for a way to really biohack and enhance your ability to build muscle, look into things like blood flow restriction bands, BFR. Massive amounts of research on BFR. By restricting blood flow to the extremities during the exercise, we then see an increase in IGF-1, insulin growth factor 1, and growth hormone, which stimulate muscle protein synthesis. The more muscle you build, the more fat you burn. So highly beneficial. The quality of sleep. Some of you need to have a sleep study done. Find out if you have sleep apnea. Make sure that you're breathing while you sleep. Also, make sure you're getting high quality sleep. With the lack of high quality sleep, it can lead to insulin resistance. So these are things that we can do right now to start stabilizing our blood sugar. And if you're wondering like, man, I've tried this on my own, or you know what, I just recently diagnosed with diabetes, or I know I have prediabetes, or I feel not right in my body and I need to do something to take care of my health, go to doctorswarren.com and schedule an appointment with myself. We'll be able to sit down and start that health journey to figure out what's the root cause of your health issues. And if you do it now during the month of December, we're doing coat donations or cash donations for coats. So it's a donation process to get an appointment in the office. So it's a win-win-win across the board. We're helping other people out and you're helping yourself by starting to work on your health. So go to doctorswarren.com to find out more information about us. And again, guys, health is a choice. And today you guys made a great choice by listening to the Wellness Radio. I enjoy doing this every week, and I hope you guys have a phenomenal weekend. I'll see you next week on the Wellness Radio. Hey guys, if you enjoyed today's episode, please take some time and leave a 5-star review. That helps us be able to reach more people with a message on health and healing. Also, make sure that you subscribe to the podcast so that when it goes live, you're ready to take your health to the next level.